Hello, and welcome back to those of you who've listened to others of these talks, and welcome to any new listeners. I'm grateful to all of you for taking some time out of your daily life to consider the Dhamma, to strengthen your path and your practice. Today we're on page 53. We're we've begun to talk about the Eightfold Noble Path. We spoke on page 52 about right view and how essential it is for us to practice intelligently or wisely, so we will gain the benefit from the practice that has been promised to us by Lord Buddha. The top of the page reads, 5 helpers to right view. The first is virtue. We've talked recently now that virtue, don't kill, don't steal, don't commit sexual misconduct, right speech, and avoid intoxicants, is the foundation of our ability to concentrate. Without that foundation, we will be proliferating. We will be experiencing the sankharas, chasing after some sensations, some experience in the world. So we'll be wanting to do things, have experiences, have the sensations that arise on the body as a result of those experiences, because that reinforces the sense of I, and we have not established our purity as a virtue sufficiently to calm down that incessant craving that the I concept has in its attempt to reinforce itself. So I know people who drink alcohol and they say, well, they don't get really drunk, they are walking the middle path. They don't abstain completely and they don't get really drunk, therefore they're walking the middle path, and alcohol or various drugs don't need to be abandoned completely. This is delusional. This is what delusion looks like. This is how the secular mind works, to convince us that we're a little bit smarter than the Buddha, that we have a better understanding of what the Buddha means than the great fully enlightened teachers have. And people do this with each of these 5 virtues. They kill mosquitoes and other annoying insects, etc., in the name of preventing them from biting someone else, all kinds of justifications. I won't go down the whole list. We tell lies because we think that we're better served, or others are better served, if we just don't tell the truth or the whole truth or nothing but the truth. So this is how the secular mind is active all day, every day, and it's no good hearing me talk about it if we don't start waking up to how this is happening within the mind that we call my mind. Number 2 is wide knowledge or wisdom. So I prefer the use of wisdom because knowledge and information are vocabulary that are better suited to learning things with our brain in the secular world, getting educated about anything, educated how to build a house or how to weld, or educated in any field that we're working in. as well as higher educations, etc. So I prefer the word wisdom. In the forest monk tradition, this is something that arises in the heart and not in the brain. It's a life transforming experience. When we have a moment of pure insight that expresses itself as a wisdom, we will not go back to the habit patterns that were corruptions, which were keeping us suffering in some way or on some level. So we can tell that we have truly understood something when it changes our thinking, it changes the way we talk, and it changes the way we act. So often people have experiences in their meditation. I have attended quite a few meditation retreats, and at the end of the retreats, people often talk about experiences that they had, and they go home, they tell their family members or friends about their experience, and over time, sometimes a very brief time, 24 hours or a day or two, they have slipped back into mental, verbal, and action habit patterns that were just the same as before they went to the meditation retreat. We find this also in religions where people go to a synagogue or a church or a temple. They are inspired by the lesson for the day, and sometimes on the way to the parking lot, they've already started a fight with their spouse or partner, or on the way home, they get into arguments, etc. So hearing the word, the inspiring words of Scripture in any religion is not sufficient to transform one's life. We know in all religions there are teachers in that religion, by whatever title, that are actually very corrupt. They're drug addicted, or they're addicted they embezzle money, they're not faithful to their partners, etc. But they're very, very good at talking about it. So that is, they don't have wisdom, they have knowledge. They have information about the religion, but not the direct experience of it. Number 3, the discussion and contemplation of what is learned. I think we haven't reached that page yet, but there's a listing of different ways people have in the past had an enlightenment experience. And it can be actually listening to a Dhamma talk. It can be discussing with others the Dhamma, and it can be the contemplation, the investigation, the analyzing, the introspection of oneself in relation to the Dhamma. Those are all ways that help us to achieve right view. A tranquility, we talked about that before. It's a little different than equanimity, but it's quieting the body and the mind. Without this ability, this essential part of our practice, the mind will remain disturbed in such a way that the wisdom that is subconscious, I don't know a better word, can't bubble up to the surface, because the surface is rippled or disturbed. It's not quiet, and if the wisdom were to bubble up, we would probably miss it. And then vipassana, or insight. without insight, how can we know the nature of the mind if we don't look into what that nature is? So all 5 of those are actually aspects of what we were talking about on page 52 when we started talking about right view. Now, my numbering system isn't very clear. We're now going to talk about the second of the Eightfold Noble Path, Sammasankappa, which is right thought or right intention. It's sometimes easy to confuse what is the difference between number 1, Samaditthi, and Sammasankappa. So let's see if we can clarify that. Right thought or intention, resolve understanding. So we have to have a clear understanding. We have to have clarity of what our intention is. And there are many hidden desires that we need to wake up to. A common desire that we don't like to face or stays hidden for long periods is to be famous as a Buddhist practitioner, to be famous for being enlightened, to be recognized, to have lots of subscribers or followers. We see this in every religion. There are Christian ministers who have 5,000 or 10,000 followers, and it's unknown how well they have questioned their intention as to why they are preaching. We need to self-examine all the time. Just constant conscious awareness. So these thoughts that arise, we call sankharas. We can't prevent them. It's their nature. We're going to gain sufficient control of the mind that inhibits and at some point restricts the, quote, unwholesome or unhealthy thoughts from arising. But as we practice this meditation and mindfulness, there's going to be all kinds of unhealthy and unwholesome thoughts arising. So the goal is, quote, thoughts free of sensual pleasures, free of malice, enmity, ill will, or cruelty to oneself or others. So I hardly have anything to say about that. That's what we're trying to do. When a sexual thought arises during meditation, we know it, we let go of it, it will disappear immediately. It may come right back, we know it, we let go of it, it will disappear. And we do that until it stops coming up. Thoughts of malice, I've said before, I have watched these true crime YouTube videos, and at the sentencing of the perpetrator, family members get to make an impact statement to the court, and so many of them are just so filled with hatred towards the perpetrator, and they want them to suffer as much as possible. Those are thoughts of malice. And they don't recognize that they are injuring themselves, they are hurting themselves, and they are hurting their future karmic experience by being so vicious and mean and hateful and murderous towards the perpetrator of the crime. So if we're going to have right thought, we're going to understand karma. We've learned that from right view, and we're not going to want to punish, be vindictive and hateful and spiteful. There's a saying in the Old Testament of the Bible, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord," meaning we don't need to worry about how karma takes care of things. We know with certainty when we understand karma that nobody is ever getting away with anything, and that includes us. We may have fooled ourselves and fooled others, but we're not getting away with it from a karmic point of view. So enmity, malice, ill will, or cruelty. This, again, in talking about the victims of crime, they have all of those, malice, enmity, ill will. They would, if given the chance, they would torture the perpetrator. This is also common in divorce. People become so angry with their partner. Of course, the worst case scenario, they kill them or they hire someone to kill them. That certainly constitutes ill will. And that's obviously very cruel, but they don't see how it's hurting them. I've quoted this saying before from the Buddha: the person who drinks poison and thinks someone else will suffer is a fool. Every time we get angry, we suffer. Right then, we are on fire. The other person may or may not be on fire. But being angry at them and wishing that they were on fire misses the point altogether. We are already on fire, and we need to put it out just as quickly as we can. Another explanation of right thought: thoughts free from all entanglements and bonds. So, of course, we need to examine what an entanglement is, and to remember that all entanglements and bonds are mental. We may be married, we may have business partners, we may have team partners, co-workers, etc., that we feel we are suffering in some way because of the entanglement we have with these people. The bonds that we have can be family members, it can be a sibling that we don't get along with, or a parent who we are estranged from. We have to see that mentally is the place that we investigate and that we make changes. Those changes mentally may manifest in the world in a way where we make amends with somebody, but that's not the point. The point is that we are giving up the sense of being stuck in bondage or in situations that are somehow hindering our own happiness and eventual liberation. And certainly there are situations that do hinder our progress on the path, and we'll need to examine them very carefully to determine what is the best way forward to ensure that we can continue to walk on the path. So right thought, intention, also includes thoughts of metta. Metta means loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Remember, those were the Dhamma houses, the Dhamma palaces, the viharas, the Dhamma viharas. We've talked about them on previous pages, and there's loving kindness is the first, compassion is the second. Sympathetic joy, as a reminder, is that we're happy when other people are blessed. We are not jealous, we are not spiteful, we are not resentful. Somebody else gets a raise and we don't, somebody else gets married and we don't, etc. On and on and on. Someone else wins the lottery, someone else falls in love. Whatever it is, we're happy for them. Good for them. Doesn't hurt us that they get blessed. And if we think it does hurt us, then we have misunderstood the path. Equanimity being the last step of the great palace of rooms, the great castles of Dhammavihara. Equanimity is the beautiful consequence. These first two contribute to Panya wisdom, a pair of the Eightfold Path. So we talked about there being dividing the Eightfold Noble Path into three sections. This is the first section. It includes the first and second of the Eightfold Path. Now we're going to talk about three. The next three will constitute another grouping, and then there'll be another grouping of three. So the third of the Eightfold Noble Path is right speech. I think it's very important to recognize that it's not right meditation, right concentration, right effort. It's right speech. And it's because right speech is so critical in our practice, and it's so difficult. It is just amazingly difficult to curtail and to catch and eliminate the various forms that wrong speech takes. So let's see the definition. Samavaka, right speech. Abstain from false speech, telling lies, exaggerating. A classic example, of course, of exaggerating is the fisherman who catches a 10-inch fish, and when he gestures the size of the fish, he gestures 12 or 16 or 18 inches. But we are exaggerating all the time. We say things like, I didn't sleep at all last night. Yes, we did. We all slept, unless we got up and went somewhere. If we flopped around in bed, according to the clinicians who study these things, there will be times that constitute sleep. So when we say words like I always and I never, those are exaggerations. There's nothing that we always do, and there's nothing that we never do. So waking up to right speech is part of the practice of mindfulness, and noticing how easy it is to fail in right speech. A common failure is, I'll meet you tomorrow at 10 o'clock, but we don't. We come at 10:15 or 10:30, or we don't show up at all. Well, that's tell a lie. I said I would meet you, and I didn't. There's a famous story of Abraham Lincoln, who borrowed some books from a neighbor who lived some miles away. He said he would return them on a certain day, and when that day came, there was a blizzard, not just a snowstorm, but a blizzard. And Lincoln is said to have walked in a blizzard to his neighbor's house, to be a man of his word. So that's a secular example of how valuable and how important it is to be trusted. People say things all the time, they don't do them, and we lose confidence in them. And once that happens, the relationship is broken. Abstain from divisive speech, from fomenting conflict. Another definition of that is don't say here what will cause problems over there. And then don't go over there and say things that will cause problems over here. Right now, certainly in America, there is just an epidemic of people causing conflict by their speech. This thinking of politically, but in many ways, culturally, sociologically, people are just turning against one another by the kind of speech that they use. Very divisive, it foments conflict, and of course much of it is false speech. Third characteristic of right speech, number 3, abstain from harsh, abusive, or vulgar speech. So I've also noticed, I'm an old man now, in the old days when I was young, swearing was inappropriate under most circumstances, although of course in high school and college we didn't abide by that cultural value. Women were seldom heard swearing. Certainly public figures, news broadcasters, television and movie stars were not heard speaking a vulgar or crude language, except as acting in a movie perhaps. But nowadays seems like everybody swears. Young kids in grade school use a very coarse and vulgar language, and it's no longer gender sensitive. Everyone of any age can say just about anything they want. So harsh and abusive language is when we're shouting at people or being verbally abusive. It's even considered a form of psychological abuse, physical and psychological abuse based on speech. So our goal in our practice is to notice the language we're using. Is it pleasant? Does it promote a general sense of peace of mind and well-being? Is it compassionate? Is it friendly? Or is it violent on some level? And vulgar and drawing to mind sexual violence. So that's number 3. Number 4 is abstain from idle chatter, gossip, rumors, vain talk, from wanting to make a good impression or gain some benefit or advantage. So chatter, idle chatter, is often defined as just talking about stuff we saw on TV or read in the news, or some story we heard about somebody talking about fashion. Oh, it's a very long list. You need to make your own. If the chatter, if the talk we're engaging in is not promoting self-awareness and the virtues of the Dhamma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity, that's our metric. That's a gauge we use to see, is what I'm talking about beneficial to me or to anyone else. Of course, gossip is a form of spreading rumors, We hear something from somebody and then we pass it along. Of course, we have no way of knowing if it's true or whether we need to be considering by passing it along. Are we engaging in divisive speech or speech which foments conflict? Passing along gossip and rumors doesn't seem to benefit anyone, certainly not us. Vain talk, of course, is when we're talking about ourselves, our children, our family, our job, our experiences, our past. Whenever we're drawing attention to ourselves, we are drawing attention to a lie. We are pretending to be someone we are not, and we enhance and strengthen this concept of being a person whenever we engage in talk that references a self over and over again. Here's another challenging form of right speech, a speech that is frankly not wanting to make a good impression. So often telling jokes, bragging, talking about where we've been, things we've done, people we know, prizes we've won, about our degrees or our status in the workplace. That is not beneficial to anyone. Again, it's another way of drawing attention to oneself. There's a saying in the Bible, people were starting to worship Jesus while he was still alive, and he scolded them by saying, "Not me, but the Father in me." And I interpret that to mean, stop thinking of me as a person and see the divinity, the Buddha nature, if you like, the God qualities. That's what you should be appreciating, and not thinking of me as a person. Well, apparently that suggestion has not been followed throughout history. And the last portion of that sentence is, or to gain some benefit. So flattery, compliments, and bragging and identifying with celebrities or famous people or something as a way of promoting oneself is not right speech. So that's a basic definition of things that are the negative form. It's often easier to talk about the way things should not be than it is to talk about the way they need to be. But here's an attempt at that as we follow down on the page. A right speech is, it's timely, it's opportune, it's true, and it's helpful. It's gentle, and it's moderate, and it's purposeful and meaningful. So I'm not going to define those words. I think we all understand them. That's timely, true, gentle, and it has a good intention. It's purposeful. And ultimately, as we grow on the path of Dhamma, this is the only kind of speech that interests us. Right speech is gentle, pleasant to hear, endearing, heartwarming, courteous, agreeable to many, and pleasing. Well, I just think those are excellent definitions and demonstrate the opposite of lying and exaggerating and fomenting conflict and harsh, abusive, vulgar speech. gossip, rumors, vain talk, all of those will be defeated if we notice and intend to make our speech gentle, pleasant to hear, endearing, heartwarming, courteous, agreeable to many, pleasing. And a little poem at the bottom of the page. In a man's mouth a hatchet grows, with which fools cut themselves when they utter unwholesome speech. That concludes page 53. As I say, after each of these short talks, I'm really grateful if you've made it to the end of this Dhamma talk. I trust that it will bless you now and in the future. If you think others might be blessed, you might consider liking or subscribing. Thank you very much.